Iger is stepping down as CEO effective immediately. Disney naming Bob Chapek as his replacement. Chapek had been running the parks business at Disney. Now, the stock is under pressure this morning, down 1 2/3%. Let's talk about this. What's behind it? Joining us right now is CFRA Research Media and Entertainment Analyst Tuna Amobi. And Tuna, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Were you surprised as I was?
This really came out of left field, Maria. I didn't see it coming for sure, but this is something that we know that had been in the works for some time in terms of succession planning and governance. Bob Chapek is a guy that we know pretty well over the years. He seems to be a very effective and motivational leader. At the end of the day, it came down to a two-horse race, Bob Chapek or Kevin Mayer, who runs a direct-to-consumer business. And while a lot of investors were hoping that Kevin Mayer would get the job, given Disney's transition to direct-to-consumer, I can definitely see why, Bob Chapek makes sense, having cut his teeth across several of Disney's core businesses and having 22 months to learn the ropes under Bob Iger.
I understand that Bob Chapek would be in line to become the CEO. That's fine. But, just 6 months ago, Bob Iger told us he was going to stay in the CEO role until the end of next year. And now he's out effective immediately. Typically these things happen when there's just a disagreement about the path forward for a company. Do you think a deal is going to happen here? Is this, why? Why is Bob Iger stepping down?
I got to tell you, I was reading the tea leaves, too, as to the seemingly abrupt nature of this timing announcement. That being said, I really believe that the timing is right. There's really nothing else left for Bob Iger to prove here. The stock is more than quadrupled in the 15 years that he's been the CEO. The strategic pillars of Disney are already set in place. The Fox integration is going on pretty seamlessly, it seems. And also the direct-to-consumer strategy has been well articulated and well bought into by Wall Street. And we saw how the Disney Plus service apparently just took off. So everything seems to have fallen in place.
But that's what direct-to-consumer is. It's streaming. That's how people know it. So should this be interpreted as a lack of confidence in streaming, given that the guy who's running parks is now the new person who will be running the operation?
It's such an important point that you're making.
It is. Far from it, though. You have to remember, theme parks, television, home entertainment, film studio, consumer products, all of those businesses are still core to Disney's, future, right? Even as all the talk and attention is going towards direct-to-consumer. You have to remember as well, direct-to-consumer from a profit and loss perspective is still a loss-making division. So at the end of the day, the challenge here is to get someone who will kind of execute the vision of integrating all of those platforms and transition into direct-to-consumer. And while Chapek admittedly still has a steep learning curve to climb, I think that having Bob Iger there for the next two years is going to ease that transition.
Something's afoot, though. The employees didn't even find out about this in internal communications until after the announcement, and they announce it on a day that the market's in the tank. In terms of a company worried about its image, that it is in the image business, that was not a good day.
Why effective immediately? That's
right.
What I'm scratching my head
There's a why
about.
now
Why
that they're not telling
immediately? So, Mattie, you made a comment in the commercial break. Tuna, you're saying he doesn't have anything to prove at Disney. Does he want to prove something else elsewhere?
My speculation here is that he's running for president. He wrote the book last year that talks about his history as a CEO. Obviously, we saw the debate stage last night. It seems that there's an opening for an independent. Do you think that there's any truth to that rumor?
I would not rule that out. With Bob Iger, you never know. But frankly, I think that he has such a credibility now, and this role as CEO, the record that he has amassed, I think really puts him in very good stead to pursue that next phase of his career, whether it's politics or whatever it is. The most important thing for investors right now is to get that resolution in terms of succession planning. If you follow Disney for any length of time, you know that succession can at times be very dramatic, and governance, etc. So having put some type of clarity to that is extremely important in the minds of investors right now.
You mean running for president this year? Because there's no path. You're going to compete unless you run as an independent or a Republican.
I think that's the goal, to run as an independent.
Okay, but look, they just put the parks guy in charge of Disney in an environment when streaming is the hottest thing that's happening right now. How come the person running streaming is not running Disney? Disney Plus, you've got it, right? You've got all of the services. It's very much a family, a family service. Does it need more? Is it competing effectively with Netflix? And I recognize that as soon as it came on the board, it was hugely successful. But is this part of it?
But that's why you keep the guy who's running streaming in charge of streaming. You keep him there if you think that that's the area.
I would say that. And I think, to the point you made, he's managed many different lines of business there.
Right.
So I think it's the diversity of his experience that the board was comfortable with. Let the person who's driving streaming drive streaming to profitability.
Right. And I would also argue that it would be a much steeper learning curve for Kevin Mayer to kind of get steeped into the creative and television and all those areas where I think with Netflix and all others, relationships have become extremely important, as much more so than, Chapek would, having been exposed to all these other businesses. I think transitioning into streaming would probably be a much easier, learning curve for him.
All right, before we go, this stock has had an enormous run under Bob Iger's leadership. Tuna Amobi, would you buy this stock today?
We're recommending a buy. Bob Iger has very big shoes to fill, but the strategic pillars remain in place, as we heard last night on the call.
All right, we will leave it there. Great to see you, Tuna.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Tuna Amobi.